All right. Hey there, folks. Since book tour and conventions are still on hold for a bit, I figured I'd bring book tour to you. So welcome to Russ's Rockin' Rollercoaster Season 3, intriguing interviews with creative minds. With us tonight is science fiction, fantasy, and horror author GINI KOCH. She is the author of the fast, fresh, and funny Alien Catherine Kitty Cat series for Doll Books, the Necropolis Enforcement Files, and the Martian Alliance Chronicles. She also has a humor collection, Random Musings from the Funny Girl, as well as the Alexander Outland series, and various other projects under different pen names. Welcome, GINI.
Hi, thanks for having me.
All right, good to see you. All right, just a quick heads up for the folks at home. Feel free to send me notes or questions you might have for me or GINI in the chat box during the show, and we'll get to a few at the end. All right, so we're going to jump right in as we always do. So, GINI, so where were you born? Where'd you grow up?
I was born in San Diego, California, really in La Mesa, which is part of San Diego. But I grew up in Ventura, which is a beach city about an hour north of Los Angeles.
Okay.
And,
all right. So you were a Southern Cal girl. Were you a beach girl?
No, I love the beach. I like the ocean. I'm very fair. I sunburn in like 3 minutes. And back in the day, the only thing that they had to protect you was zinc oxide, and no one looks cool with a bunch of white stuff smeared all over them, and that is the biggest sand attractor known to mankind. So I was not really fond of the beach. I love the ocean, but the beach itself, yeah. Yeah.
Did you walk? I mean, did you walk like the paths along the beach, or did you just stay? You just didn't go there at all?
Ventura is not the idyllic beach community, and it probably is now. Okay, but when I was growing up, Ventura is an agricultural county, and that means you can basically, you can surf in the morning, and you can work in the fields in the afternoon, and if you're lucky, you can drive somewhere else and go hiking, or go skiing at night if you were so inclined. But you have to leave Ventura in order to ski. You have to leave Ventura to do most fun things. So it's become a suburb of Los Angeles, but it sure wasn't when I was growing up. And when you're young and don't have a car, that 45 minutes to an hour to get to Los Angeles, or the 30 minutes to get to Santa Barbara, those are an eternity. So
was it just you? Did you have brothers, sisters?
I'm an only child. I had cats and dogs as siblings.
So what did your parents do?
My father was not in the picture, and my mother was a school teacher. So
what kind of a teacher?
She taught grade school and junior high math and English.
Okay, so all right, so it was you and your mom
and my grandmother.
Oh, and wow. Okay, so a house full of girls.
Yes.
And pets. So what was that like? What was that dynamic like?
Well, my mother was completely insane, and I've talked about it, so it's not like this is some big revelation, but she was an insane, abusive person. She was also brilliant, which was helpful in some ways and not helpful in others. My grandmother was wonderful, and she's the reason I'm even remotely at this side of sanity. But there was a lot of reading. We were very into the arts. I do not know how to spit or grill, because those are guy things.
wait, go back to the art stuff. So what kind of stuff did you guys, the reading and the arts, what was your thing?
Oh, we were reading. My mother and grandmother, we are very fast readers. My grandmother was very fast. My mother was faster than her. I'm faster than my mother. My daughter is faster than me. So it's pretty much her daughter. She just had a baby last year, last year, because we're in 2021 now. I expect that child to just go with the book, because that's
what were the things
everything
that you were reading? Okay.
Everything. All the kids' books, and then right after all the kids' mysteries, after Charlotte's Web and that level, then Nancy Drew, Trixie Belden, every mystery known to mankind, and then I moved to adult mysteries. So by the time I was, 7 or 8, I'd read all of Sherlock Holmes, by the Conan Doyle, the entire collected works. I'd read all of O. Henry. And then I focused on mysteries and read all the mysteries, and then the librarians in town, once they were really tired of this 12-year-old coming in and demanding the next Nero Wolf when the new one had just shown up, and they had to explain that the authors still needed to write them, and I could not understand why this was so, because I was done reading it. And you know, I've read the new Ellery Queen, I've read the new Alfred Hitchcock. So I don't know whether it was kindness or desperation or vindictiveness, but then they moved me to horror. And I read everything in horror. And while I was doing that, I also read biographies and autobiographies.
Hold on, going too fast. Go back. So hold on. So you were reading mysteries and you got into horror. What kind of horror were you reading?
Everything, whatever the library had, everything, everybody. I particularly like short horror, like the collections, but I read everything, whatever I could get my hands on. I didn't actually have a favorite horror author. I will say this: Stephen King's Night Shift is why I had to stop reading horror. I don't find his novels, I don't enjoy his novels. They're wordy in the wrong way for me, and they don't scare me at all. But his short fiction terrifies me. And I am a great big grown-up girl, and I still can't be in a room with a door open just a crack, because that's how the boogeyman gets you. And I still believe that, thank you, Stephen King. So I had to stop reading horror, because at that point I realized I believed every word. So I moved away from horror into, and like I said, I was reading biographies and autobiographies and humor. I've read humor all the way through.
Well, hold on, before you go past that, you're skipping over all the good stuff. Okay, so
it's all good stuff.
so you started off reading a lot of mysteries and got into horror. So back then, did you have sort of like a council of geeks around you who like shared your interest, or was it just you?
Oh my God, no. So alone. We didn't talk about books in the way that people talk about all these things now. It wasn't like my grandmother and mother sat me down and said, tell me how you liked this book. It was just, here's the next one for the addiction. You know, it keeps her quiet. Wonderful, wonderful. I would run home from school to watch Dark Shadows. I would run from the bus to get there in time for Dark Shadows. There was nobody to talk to about that. No, I didn't even know anybody but me watched Dark Shadows. You know, I mean, I didn't understand how television in that sense worked. But nobody was there to talk about it. We watched The Wild Wild West religiously. We didn't talk about it. There was nobody. We talked about rock bands. That was my.
Okay, now hold on. I very definitely want to get into that, but hold on. Go back just a second. So so you're reading these mysteries and you're reading horror. Yeah. As a young and teen girl, and all in here, you kept it all inside. So 2 questions. One, what was it about horror that, I mean, you could have read a horror and said, nope, not for me, but instead you dove in. So what is it about horror that, because I'm not a horror guy, but I've been talking to a lot of horror authors, and I'm trying to get to the heart of what is it about horror that appeals to you? Like, what's the draw?
It's cathartic. You go through this horrible experience, but you come out of it on the other side. So there's a catharsis of sorts. It's a different catharsis from solving a mystery or visiting an alien world or returning, throwing the ring in Mount Doom. There's a different catharsis with horror. And it's not always a good catharsis.
Right. But it's like a thriller, like a thriller of surviving.
Kind of. Horror is really talking about real things, but with a monster overlay. So just like science fiction kind of holds a mirror up, so does horror. It's just a different side of the mirror. So you can look at whatever monster you want to look at, and you can see, is it a tortured soul? Is it someone not being allowed to be who they really are? Is it just a mindless killing machine? When I was in 8th grade was when Jaws came out, and that book got passed around. Someone grabbed it off of their mother's nightstand, and that got passed around. And the funny part was it was all read chapter 8, because that's where in the book Hooper and Mrs. Brody have sex. I read chapter 8, didn't understand at all what was going on, read the whole book, still didn't really get chapter 8, read the whole book like 6 or 7 times. Handed it off with read chapter 8, I guess, but the book's pretty okay, right? It took me, I'm embarrassed for how long it took me to understand chapter 8.
Quick aside about Jaws. The 25th anniversary screening of the movie came out, and they played it at Radio City Music Hall in New York City. I got tickets.
Cool.
I was too young. I saw it on TV when I was a kid, so I saw it in the theater for the first time in this gorgeous theater. And who introduced the movie but Peter Benchley himself?
Wow.
Yes, wow. It was a great experience. So, okay, so we're going back to horror, and I want to ask you, because it's one of the questions I had here. So more and more, and I didn't forget about the rock and roll, so I'm going to get to that too. So more, because I'm a big rock guy. More and more, I'm seeing an overlap of authors who write science fiction, fantasy, and horror. So to you, is there an overlap between those genres, or do you write and read them for different reasons?
Yes, to both. Okay. I have currently 7 pen names, and I write in every genre. When I was reading more than before I was really writing, everything fell under the title of speculative fiction. And speculative now has become this microcosm of science fiction or fantasy somewhere. But in the olden days, when I was writing my Brontosaurus to school, speculative fiction covered all of it. And so I liked things that speculate. And you speculate in all of this stuff. What if monsters are real? What is this monster like? All of the genres can cross over. And like when I write, everything I write has a mystery in it. Right. Because mysteries are my first love. Now, they're not sold as mysteries. And some people are like, well, I don't see the mystery. It's like, well, they have to figure out everything that happened. That's a mystery. I mean,
I write the same one.
Right. Okay. So there are horrific things. There are horror in everything. My main series, Touched by an Aliens, book 1. Book 16 is Aliens Abroad, that came out a couple of years ago. I'm late on book 17. We're not talking about that this hour. But in Camp Alien, which is book 13, that I looked at as my horror novel for the series. There was a lot going on in a creepy, haunted asylum that actually exists, and things like that. So I got to get that in, and I wanted to get that in because it's fun to be scared. It is fun to scare people. It is fun to be scared, as long as it's all okay in the end.
Right. So
one way or the other.
Let me ask you about this. So you said you had let's call it a disruptive childhood, and we'll right?
Wow, that's a nice word for it.
Right.
Yes.
Well,
okay.
Been there. So do you think that you had to it seems like you had to endure quite a bit in your youth, especially being an only child and not a big circle of people who could sort of support you. You didn't have that community. So do you think that maybe that the horror for you, both reading and writing, was sort of, I know what it is to sort of have to hunker down and sort of survive and get through, because there are creepy or challenging things going on around me. But if I hang in there, I'm going to get to that other side. Do you think there's some correlation there with your books?
If there was, it wasn't conscious. Right. I will tell you remember how I keep saying, and I read biographies and autobiographies. Yep. That's what I used as this person survived all of that and went on to be somebody cared about, to have an autobiography or biography.
So what biography?
That's what I used to survive.
What biographies inspired you?
Winston Churchill's, which was fabulous. And Shirley Not Shelley, with Shelley Winters. Bing Crosby's was very eye-opening. It really taught me someone can look wonderful on screen and be an absolute bastard in real life. Right. obviously, Helen Keller and Annie Sullivan, all of
Right.
that. I read like every iteration of that, somebody going through hardships. So those would be, I think, the ones that stick with me the most. George Burns wrote a lot of,
Right.
I guess they were all autobiographies, and I read every one of them. Loved him. So it's just, learning different things about different people.
So I'm a lifelong rock and roll guy. I'm a drummer.
Ditto.
You can see there's a guitar behind me,
Yeah.
which I tinker with, but don't really play that well. Talk to me about rock and roll.
Well, Elton John was my first. He was the first artist that was mine that my mother did not understand. I don't know how you can't understand Elton John or Billy Joel, who came after, but Elton John was my first. That was the one that was mine.
That's actually a funny. I'll tell you a very very funny story. Well, not little side. So my uncle, my dad's brother, was actually in the music business back in the 60s and the 70s. He was a drummer too. Mm-hmm. Around 1970, 71, he said to my dad, he goes, "Listen, there's this new song that's come out, and I'm telling you, this guy is going to be a star." And that song was Crocodile Rock.
Yeah.
Right. And at that time, he was unknown at that point. And then, of course, he became who he became.
He became Sir Elton John.
And he actually wound up, the same uncle, he actually wound up working with Billy Joel for a while. So
wow. That uncle, I'm very jealous. I'm very jealous.
He did a sound recording. So my whole family, me, I'm a Billy Joel lunatic. I've seen him.
I love Billy Joel. I love Billy Joel. On all the albums. Billy Joel was one of those things that cracked me up because my mother hated Billy Joel. She didn't understand Elton John. She hated Billy Joel. He's just whining about teenage angst. I'm thinking that's a third of the songs in the entire history of music are whining about teenage angst. Right? So and then I've never lost my love for Elton John. I've never lost my love for Billy Joel, and I've never lost my love for Aerosmith. And Aerosmith, we had a radio station at my junior high, and the guys that were running it really loved Led Zeppelin, and I am not a big Zeppelin girl. And so they'd play Stairway to Heaven, like, I don't know, 15 times at lunch.
Right.
And I'm all for repetition, but that was too much. And so I'd be like, oh, you finally are playing something by Aerosmith. So I just became more dedicated to Aerosmith because of the Led Zeppelin love in my school. Then it was like I was a rebel. I was going to support the good band, right? Okay. So, and I just always loved Aerosmith ever since. And the big Kiss was huge at this time. And Kiss was, when you said, who did you talk about? We talked about rock. We talked about Kiss.
Really?
My little group of friends, Kiss was everything at that time. When I Want to Rock and Roll All Night, when Rock and Roll All Night came out, that was that perfect storm for us. So that was the big band that we were just all so into. What do they look like? Oh, they're so talented and all this other stuff. And I just think that's a part of growing up. And then you move on from that. I still like Kiss, but I don't worship the ground Kiss walks on anymore. Right. There was a brief period of time, and then that left. But that was what my group was into: music and Star Wars.
Well, you said my two favorite things. So we talked a little bit before the show. I want to ask you quick, and then we're going to move on. So tell me about when you lived in Phoenix for about 20 years. What brought you to Phoenix originally?
I got hired by IBM, which stands for I've Been Moved. And I got hired. We were living in Los Angeles, and sure enough, it was, if you want the job, it's in Phoenix, which was fine. I love Phoenix. So we went there. My husband got hired by IBM once we were there. And then I left because I became a full-time author, and he's still there. And so we were never planning to leave Phoenix. Right. And then about 3.5 years ago, IBM said, if you like to keep earning money and those benefits, you're now going to do it in
Oh,
Atlanta.
right.
So that's where we are
in
now.
Atlanta, but let's go back to Phoenix for a minute. And the reason,
Oh, I would love to.
well, fair enough. But the reason I want to talk about it is because the desert, for those of you who have never been out there, so the desert's a really strange and interesting place. So,
Yeah.
so I mean, I was only out there for a short while in Tempe, right outside of Phoenix, and I worked in Phoenix for a little bit. So tell me your experiences about, life in the desert.
I would not be a writer if not for Phoenix.
Why is that?
I would never, well, number one, the commute in Los Angeles is ridiculous. And I was the major breadwinner at that time. So I was commuting every day and you're exhausted. And the mere idea of thinking, trying to do anything once I got home would not have happened. But my commute in Phoenix was no big deal. The traffic differential is extreme. And I just love it there. I am a desert girl. I like the heat. I think I mentioned that our daughter just had a baby in middle of May last year, and they had me come out. And it was a record heat summer in Phoenix, and I'm outside like, yes.
I remember when I moved to Tempe, I was living on Long Island. It was 70. I left in August. It was the middle of August. I left. It was 77 degrees. When I got to Phoenix 5 days later, it was 111.
Yeah.
Right. And it was 100 degrees at midnight.
Yep.
Yeah.
I love that.
But if you go just 2 hours north, if you go
Prescott,
up to Flagstaff or Sedona, it was snowing.
Yes. And that's one of the things I like. That's a very Southwestern thing. If you live in Los Angeles, you can surf in the morning and ski Big Bear at night. Right. So I like being able to do that. Not that I'm going to surf. And skiing is probably no longer in my repertoire anymore, but all those things were fun to do when I was younger. And I just love the desert. I love everything about it. I love the colors. I love the heat. I love the way it is. I took one step out of O'Hare. I was still in the parking lot and the parking structure, and the heat hit my body. And my whole body just relaxed. It was like, this is what air is supposed to feel like.
I remember when I got out there, it was something like 78 days of sunshine. And I remember there was finally a cloudy day. And I just thought, oh my, thank God. I need I mean, I like sun is good, but 78 days in a row. That's a lot of sun, man. Whoa.
It's so good. I miss it so much.
And then when you wake up in the morning, there'd be ice crystals on the lawn. And in the middle of the afternoon, it'd be 80. So anyway, you're out in Phoenix. So now you have a little bit more time. So talk to me about when you first got serious about writing. How did that happen?
Well, I'd always had story ideas running through my head, and I was never actually fully present. We could be doing this conversation, but I would be running scenes in the background. You would never know, but I knew I wasn't fully engaged.
Right.
And I had a teacher, and teachers can be great, and teachers can also be very detrimental. This one was very detrimental. And I knew she was an idiot, but it didn't matter, because when she said the only way you can write is to outline, I believed her. So I would try to outline. It would be a dismal failure. And this was again, I was writing that Brontosaurus to school. This is before personal computers. So you're doing everything by hand. Well, I just concluded I couldn't write because I could not outline. I could outline for business presentations and term papers, by the way. The outlines are great, but I couldn't do it for this. So I thought that it wasn't. And finally, the voices in my head got so loud. I was working for somebody who was a horrible manager, a horrible person.
Right.
And she was making my life and many other people's lives a living hell. And it was a beautiful Saturday, and I was supposed to write a telemarketing script just because, right? And my husband and my daughter are out at that point. Our apartment, we were in an apartment, not a house, and it was right on the desert preserve. And they were out for a hike, and I couldn't do anything. And the voices in my head just got so loud and screaming that I thought, fine. And I thought I'll just write them down to shut them up. And I literally looked up 8 hours later. I very fast typist. I had like 200 pages because I wasn't bothering to craft anything. I wasn't worrying about typos. It was just write it and get it out. And I realized, oh my gosh, I reread it. I'm like, this is not terrible. I mean, it needs some serious work, but it's not terrible.
Yeah.
And I never looked back.
Great.
So,
all right.
yeah.
Well, all right. So you write all sorts of types of otherworldly stories. So for you, what's the appeal of science fiction and fantasy versus, you also do some supernatural stuff. So what's the appeal of both? And they're different, but they share some commonalities. Talk to me about that.
It's the story. I think one of the reasons I write in so many genres and so many pen names is because I'm going where the characters and the story want me to go. I never thought science fiction was the last thing I second to last. After horror, I went to science fiction, and then I went to fantasy. And I really thought I was going to be just a fantasy writer because I really enjoyed it. But everything I write, about 75% of it comes out science fiction. I'm not trying to make it come out science fiction. It just does. So why, I guess, the science, I have a little bit of a science background, and but also I just, pardon?
What's your background?
Physics. So
wait,
I don't talk about it a lot, like physics. Yeah, I don't talk about it a lot.
No. We're on an interview show. Talk to me about it a little bit.
Okay, when I was in 4th grade, UCSB, the University of California, Santa Barbara, was offering a weekend course for people to learn physics. So went up, took it. I was doing so well that everyone, the instructors were like making arrangements with my mother to have me go to UCSB for college. I'm in 4th grade and they're doing this.
Wow.
I'm very excited, and I get a certificate and everything else. It was just the greatest, right? When I get back to school, and I was in the mentally gifted minors program, which, whatever name they want to call it, where they're putting the smart kids.
Right.
And I showed the certificate to my teacher because I was very proud. And again, I've had wonderful teachers, and I've also had terrible ones, and this is one of them. She looked at it and said, "So what? Who cares?" And walked away. I wouldn't touch it again.
Horrible.
Oh, my mother was devastated. She, nothing she said would work. So when I went to college, I was a little sister at the UCLA. I went to Mount St. Mary's University, which is up the hill from UCLA. And I was a little sister at a UCLA fraternity, the one that was for math, science, physics majors. My big brother was a physics major and everything else. So I kind of kept my hand in. And one of the brothers took me home one weekend to meet his friends. And one of those friends ended up my husband. And that friend, his father was the head of the physics department at Cal State Northridge. And he needed his textbook proofed before he turned it in. So I offered to do that. And when I finished, it took me a little longer than it should have, mostly because I procrastinated. And I gave it back to him. I said, "This is really good." And I said, "I think people are really going to learn a lot." He goes, "Wait a minute, you understood the formulas?" I'm like, "Yes, you explained them very well. This is an excellent book." He's like, No, stop. You understood this. I'm like, Yes, I did. It's like, "Why didn't you major?" It's like, long story, want to make money, not be in a lab. Right. So
wow. Okay. Good on you.
It worked out. I'm much happier with it going through this way. So it all worked out in the end.
Well, I was a former teacher myself, so
good ones are good. Good ones are the best thing in the world. Bad ones can destroy you.
The human in me and the teacher in me both want to do some pretty lousy things to that teacher, but that's
I know. Yeah, no, it was horrible.
That's horrible.
How to crush a child's spirit in 2 sentences.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, we're gonna show them. So quick interlude for anyone.
I already have.
There you go. Keep up. For anyone who came in a little late, if you have any questions or comments for GINI or me, send them in the chat box, and we'll get to a few at the end of the show. Okay, so we're gonna take one more question, and then we're going to move on to some other stuff. So like me, you write a combination of novels and short stories. Mm-hmm. So what do you like about each format, given that their lengths are so different? And do you find either one easier or more difficult than the other?
I do. I am a natural novelist. I write long. I have no issue writing long. I have more of an issue stopping than I do anything else. Short stories are way more challenging, but you can do a lot with them. And I enjoy all the forms. I write in every length, like, and as well as every genre. And I enjoy it. It's much more of a challenge to write short than it, at least for me, than it is to write long. But I have friends, one of the people I'm mentoring, she writes short stories naturally. She's just really good at them. And, we're working to get her to understand a novel pacing versus a short story
Totally
pacing.
different, yeah.
So, they're very different, but they're fun. I mean, I think, and one of the things that for any aspiring authors who are listening, you need to be able to write in all the lengths. It is close to impossible to have a really great career if you can't be invited into an anthology and write a short story for that anthology. It helps keep your name out there. It helps you sell your novels, et cetera, and vice versa. It's hard to earn, it's possible, but very difficult to earn a living just on short stories. Novels are where more of the money is. Right. So you really want to be able to do that. I would have missed out on a lot of great opportunities if I hadn't learned how to write short stories.
Yeah, when I first kind of got into the novel world, I was offered many opportunities to write short stuff, and I kept passing them over because I just couldn't figure out how to crack the code. And then it kind of just occurred, I don't remember exactly where, and it just occurred to me. I said, you know what? Even if it's only 5,000 words, it still has a beginning, a middle, and an end. They just have to be much, much, much shorter. So once I sort of just cracked that in my head, I sort of said, I think maybe
I actually got the key crack at a writer's conference, really? Where you're going to learn. Right. And the author who was instructing, I don't remember his name. I think his first name was John. That's all I got. He said, you need to look at it if you're struggling. He goes, let me explain. A novel is the house. And it can be a small house or a two-story house or a mansion, depending on your size, what you're doing, but it's the house. A novella is one floor of the house. The short story is one room of the house. And Flash is looking through the keyhole at a room.
Right. Okay.
And once I got that, I'm like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. But I was still having trouble with pacing and everything. I basically challenged myself to write. I had to write short. It had to be short. I picked lengths that were all saleable lengths at pro rates. And I had to change the length, the POV from first or third or omniscient. I'm not good at second. And the past or present tense and genre. And I had to change 3 out of those 4 every time I wrote. And I've sold almost every story that I wrote from that thing. And it just taught me pacing. It clicked after doing it. It taught me pacing, not only for short stories, but also for my novels. And all of a sudden I knew, I'm at the midpoint here. I know how many more words are coming.
Right.
So it was pretty great.
All right. That was great. So now it's time for a special segment of the show where we spin the wheel. On the wheel are 7 categories. Wherever it lands, what you get. And the categories are Stranger in a Strange Land, Music Lover, Space Meal, Fear of Flying, Hello Earthlings, Quantum Leap, and Creature Feature. You ready?
Okay, I'm ready.
Here we go. All right, so what are you going to get here?
I don't know. I hope it's something I have an answer for.
All right, Quantum Leap.
Okay.
All right, so what do I got here? You volunteered to step into the Quantum Leap Accelerator. Only you get to pick where you go and when within your own lifetime. What's your destination?
In my own lifetime. Yeah. Wow. I go back to when I am 15 years old in college with that teacher, and I'm waiting outside the door when I walk out after being told that the only way you can write is to outline. And I say, that woman is full of shit. You do not outline. You are an extreme linear writer. And that means you start with the title and the first line. And when you get to the end, you stop. Stop trying to outline creativity. Your story ideas are viable. Just don't outline.
Right on.
So,
all right. Well, it's funny.
That's the thing I changed.
It's funny that you got to that one because our next part of the show is the advice column.
Uh,
You and I are both in the writing business, so I've asked this before. Over the years, I'm sure you've gotten either gotten or heard lots of good. What's the best and the worst advice you've ever gotten or heard someone give to someone else?
The best advice I ever got was from Bob Bell, who is a very well-known figure in Arizona. Lovely man, long drink of water, wears a cowboy hat and 10-gallon, and he is the sweetest person on the planet. And he was the first person I ever talked to at the first writers conference I ever went to, and everyone remembers me from there because I was ready to faint because I was so frightened. So everybody's reaction was, "Are you okay? Are you going to faint? Do you need to sit down?" So after we got through that, I asked him for advice. He said, "Here's the best advice I can give you. 50% of what everyone says from stage is wrong. 50%. So if you hear something and you go, that doesn't make any sense, that's okay, they're wrong." He said, if someone tells you your idea is stupid, they're wrong. If someone tells you that you can't write, they're wrong. If someone says that's the only way to do it, they're wrong. And that was wonderful, because anytime I hit something and someone said, well, I'm like, well, Bob says you're wrong. So la, 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 right? So that was really good for me. And it boils down to don't believe everything you hear, and everything is not going to apply to everybody. There. So if somebody says there's only one way to do things, that's the worst advice. The outlining falls under there's only one way to do things. Indeed. What they mean is, this is the way I do things, and so that's the way everybody should do things.
Yes, yes.
There is not only one way. The only rule is that money should flow to the author. That's it.
That's a very good rule. Okay.
The rest of it is all guidelines.
Yes. All right. So I've added 2 new segments to the show. So the first is the revision decision. When writing a manuscript, whether it's a short story, novella, novel, play, what have you, will always require revisions.
Yes.
You really need to dig in and clean up what you've got. So you've done this for a long time and you've spoken to others about process. So what's your approach to editing your own work?
I edit as I go. So I that's not to say I don't get to the end and go back through, but I edit as I go because I am an extreme linear writer. If I'm writing wrong, I have to stop and fix it, because I can't course correct 50,000 words. I mean, I can, and I'm doing it right now, as a matter of fact. But basically, I can't go on if something's wrong, because I have to fix it then. So I am constantly revising and constantly editing. And if I'm happy with it, great, I move on. But as I get along, if I realize, 6 chapters, 10 chapters, 12 chapters back, I need to refer to this thing right here, someone needs to know it exists, then I go back and do it. I don't mind editing at all. I get, obviously I get edits from editors, and I don't mind doing them. I think that there's nothing that you write that can't be improved by the application of a judicious edit. Someone editing just to lift their leg on your manuscript, that's not what I mean. I mean, someone who's looking at it, who's like, this could be tighter. Here's what I suggest. Your word usage here, I don't think that word means what you think it means. Right. You've repeated this too often. Right. I really like this word here, but let's remove it from these places. All the way down to, you have to add characters, you have to delete this scene, those kind of things. I think that's very helpful. So I actually kind of enjoy editing.
All right. So now we're going to discuss how much I love you and I hate you. So as writers, when we put out our work and ourselves out there, criticism of all kinds comes. The reviewers love you or they hate you, and sometimes they're actually indifferent. How do you feel about reviews? Do you take them to heart? Do you let them roll off you? Do some stick with you more than others?
My first negative reviews came on my log lines for Touched by an Alien and Alien Tango, and that was when they were announced in Publishers Weekly. Some blog that I don't even know if they still exist now were insulting about them, and I was just like, wow, just my log lines you've decided to be bitchy about. And so I already knew it was going to come. Everybody's a critic. I mean, if you've watched a television show or a movie, and you've told somebody whether you liked it or not, you're a critic, where that art is there. My viewpoint is, if you can't take constructive criticism, nay, if you cannot take criticism at all, perhaps a career in the arts is not for you. I've always known it was going to be there. It doesn't surprise me. I don't like it. I don't think anybody likes getting their work insulted, but um, no critique of a book is as devastating as somebody saying, nah, we don't want you for the job. If you don't like that piece or that book, that's just one thing. Rejecting me for a job, you rejected me. Okay. I never took job rejections that personally. I wasn't right. It wasn't right. Something better is coming along.
Right.
So I try to let them roll off my back. Do they always know? But that's why you call your friends. You discuss how this person needs to burn in hell, and then you move on.
I love it. Absolutely, indeed. Okay, so that's great. So now we're gonna do, Ginny, a little shameless promotion. Let's show the folks here what we got. I'm gonna do a little shared screen here, so just bear with me for a moment. Let me get this out of the way. We're gonna do this, and then we're gonna share. Okay, so can you see what I'm seeing?
I see shameless promotion. Okay, Jenny.
Okay, no. Are you seeing your book cover here or no?
I am not. I see your screen, but I don't see the book cover.
Hold on, let's try this again.
That's okay.
We'll try this. Let's see.
Neither book cover are new, so.
There we go. How about now?
There we go. Okay. That's the
Happy
Acres. That's the Happy Acres Haunted Hotel for Active Seniors. It is not new. Neither cover I sent you were new. I said this one because this actually has a fun little history. I was supposed to be the anchor author for an anthology where you were set in haunted hospitals of some kind. And the anthology, they changed the rules basically, and my agent and I said, no. But I had this story, and it was long because I was the anchor, and I got like triple the word length of everybody else. And I didn't want to just let it sit there. I didn't feel like there was going to be something that was going to come in that was going to just say, oh, I can send it there. So I self-published this, and it kind of cracks me up because it is very popular. I like that. That doesn't crack me up, but everybody asks me, when's the next one? I wrote that as to be a standalone. And everybody wants more stories set with these characters in the setting. And for those people that are interested in, while I was in Arizona, Maddie, the main character, did share what the next story is. So there will be a second Happy Acres novella coming. I haven't written it yet, but I know what it is, which is better than I've been for 10 years.
Okay, what do we got here?
This is Touched by an Alien. This is the book that gave me my career. So this is the first in the Alien Catherine Kitty Cat series from Daw. All the books are still in print, for which I'm very grateful. And if you haven't read me yet, this is where to start. If you like this, you'll like everything I write as GINI Koch. If you don't like this, you might like some of my other pen names, but you won't like anything I write as GINI Koch.
All right, fair enough. So a couple questions, and we're gonna. So what else you got coming out?
Coming out right now, I have a lot of short stories in various anthologies. I had the opportunity to do a lot of science fiction over the summer, and I've set them in what I call my Belters universe. So I'm excited because it's a universe I created way back when in one of my first anthologies for Daw, which was For Love and Rockets, and my story was Wanted. And I always wanted to do more stories set in that same universe, and now I have. So in the Zombie Needs Brains anthology, Derelict will have Saving Sally Ruth, which is about a derelict spaceship, and Gunfight at Europa Station A from Baen Books will have Showdown on Big Rock 27, which is a miners versus pirates versus Galactic Police. And Reinvented Heart will have Where the Heart Takes You, which is kind of a space version of the, you know, what happens at the state fair kind of thing.
Okay, very
So
good.
yeah.
All right,
So
we got a question.
those are all coming out this year.
Great, and we got one quick question. Why don't you have audiobooks?
I do actually have two. Alexander Outland's Space Pirate by me writing as GJ Koch is available from Audible, and that's excellent. And Natural Born Outlaws, Legend of Belladonna, Part 1, which is by me writing as A.E. Stanton, is available from Graphic Audio. And their tagline is a movie in your mind. And they really do a fabulous job with that too. So I'm very proud of both of those. As for why nothing else is in audio, my agent and I are working on that, and it's a long, sad, sordid story of what happened when GINI's books got bought by a very bad audiobook company, and the fight to get the rights back, and then just moving forward. So one day soon, I hope.
All right, that's great. All right, these look great. And as for me, I'll encourage you folks to check out my new sci-fi mystery, Crackle and Fire, featuring my hard-boiled intergalactic private eye, Angela Hardwick, part Doctor Who, part Blade Runner, and part Philip Marlowe. In Crackle and Fire, Hardwick is hired to find a missing intern with stolen corporate files, but soon finds herself tackling with dueling gangsters, angry protesters, and a madman from Earth with galactic ambitions of his own. It's available on Amazon and published by Crazy 8 Press. Okay, so that pretty much.
By the way, that book sounds really good.
Well,
I'm just saying.
I hope you like it. I encourage you to check it out too. So, GINI, I want to thank you for a great show, and I want to thank everyone who's watching. So, GINI, thanks very much. This was great having you on the show. I had a great time. I'm your host, Russ Colchamiro, and I'll catch you all next week. Take care now.
Thank you.
All right, bye-bye now. Thanks a lot.
Bye.
See you guys.